In my book, your go-to sales advisor, Tucker, maybe you can pull the link. On page 50, you've got a great write-up. It says, it's not who you know, but who knows you. Tell us more about that.
So it's definitely a philosophy of mine. It's funny you mentioned that. And you're living it, Randy. I mean, so when I left IDC, everybody knew me. And then I went in and did my CIO consultancy. We were working with CIOs up and down the East Coast in insurance and financial services and pharma. But my network changed dramatically. And when I decided to get back into the content business, nobody knew me. I knew a lot of people, but that really wasn't, the lever. What was the lever was publishing and writing and doing videos and getting my name out there again. And that was a game changer. So it was just a constant cadence. I was talking to my wife the other day. She goes, remember when you started Wikibon, you'd be up 3 o'clock in the morning blogging, and just every day you'd put out new content. And that was how we really built up the brand, not only the personal brand, but the company brand. Randy, I look at somebody like you, the cadence that you're on with series like this and the work that you're doing, you understand, I think, how important it is to reach a larger audience, one to many. I think I'm on my 160th breaking analysis. I do it every week like clockwork. And I'm able to reach far more people, and many I don't even know.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's also an aspect of just kind of, industry's been very kind to us. So also an aspect of, giving back in that as well, right?
I'm glad you said that. You were asking before about the culture. We are mission driven. We're free content. We've never really optimized for EBIT, maybe call us crazy, but we really have optimized for free content. We don't have any paywalls. Our content is always available. Think of it as open source content. And John and I have invested a lot of money to make that happen. And that's how we've given back, at least one of the ways.
Yeah, fantastic. So what about, there's a couple standard questions I ask everybody each week. First, advice for people breaking into tech sales. Any advice there?
I mean, obviously networking is super important, but I think it goes back to, who knows you. And I think you should write as much as possible. When you write things down, it forces you to think more clearly. And when you publish, even though you might have one person or two people, your family, reading the stuff or watching the stuff, you got to start somewhere. And I think video is another key piece there. So, a lot of people, sales guys, they break in and say, hey, I got something to sell. You want to buy it? Versus, hey, here's some value that I'm going to give to you with no expectation in return. As you build up that repository, and you know this, Randy, of content, that content can be used in sales situations to give to people, to open doors and differentiate from your competition.
Yeah, especially now, LinkedIn, just being able to comment on different things. So, whatever, if I'm trying to sell to, you and John, going in and commenting, hey, this is great, appreciate this, appreciate that. After about a month or so, you're probably going to remember, okay, the same person's commenting. Then they ask for a meeting. You're going to say, okay, they're credible. And then even better, there's something that you say or do, and then they add in on top of that something that's of value. So there's a lot of those, little easy things that could be done now that definitely didn't exist when we were growing up, right?
I'll give you an example, and this is pretty sophisticated, but I'll give it to you anyway. Is like all of us, you'll get a friend will hit you up and say, hey, can you do an introduction to this CEO, as an example? Okay, fine. You can do an introduction on LinkedIn. I said, I'll do you one better. So we have software that every video that we record gets ingested into the software, automatically transcribed, indexed, so we can make clips like that. Anybody can do it. I can do it. You can do it. It's very simple to use. So I said, I'll do one better for you. I'm going to make a clip of an interview I did with this person you want to meet that was relevant to what you're selling. I'm going to give you that clip, and then you're going to post it on LinkedIn. You're going to tag him, and you're going to tag me. And we're going to start a conversation. That's a way better conversation starter than, hey, amazing, meet this guy. Yeah, it was great. And I don't know, they started a conversation. I don't know if they ever sold anything. I actually don't think they did. But still, what a better way to get in front of somebody.
Yeah, a lot of the sales tech stack companies I'm working with now, that they want help and get to the CROs. So, first thing is, okay, we'll go back and listen to the podcast that I've done with them and kind of basically do what you just said. So second question is advice for those impacted by recent layoffs in tech sales.
Again, it comes back to networking, kind of same advice. You got to network, you got to get your name out there. And I think as well, when you research and you write it just forces you to find some of the interesting, things that are going on in the industry. You might have a passion for security, and then you got to peel the onion and figure, okay, who's got the right strategy here? And how can I add value to that organization? I think the good news is there are more people hiring than there are laying off, and the data shows that. It's weird, right? You see all these layoffs going on all over the place, but we have single-digit unemployment. So stay positive, because it's still an okay market out there.
Yeah, I was listening to a Goldman economic forecast yesterday, and they said there's basically 1.1. I have to get this right. 1.1 versus 1. So you've got 1.1 jobs open, and you've got one person looking. So there's more jobs than there are people. So just crazy there. And then Tucker, I don't know if you're able to pull it up. I did a post, I think it was Sunday, on advice to people that are laid off. So there's some basic blocking and tackling that people can see. But one thing I always suggest, whether you're sales or anything, is circle back with whoever it is that you were working for or working with, and get back different or better. So I rinse everything else, but kind of get that feedback. And I think today, especially where the hiring was crazy and the funding was crazy, a year ago, now a lot of people are doing what I'll call kind of sloppy performance management. They're basically doing performance cuts that they probably should have been doing all along. And cultures are such that they're really not open giving the feedback in terms of what can people do different or better. So as an individual, you should always be able to look in the mirror and try and get some of that feedback. And that's just going to help you be kind of bigger, better, going forward. And, prior years, you can maybe use a Belichick example, which given their season this year may not be as much value, right?
He's still good. But, I know it's bromide, but stay positive, right? Fight the negative thoughts, write down, what to do, write down the list of things you could do and attack them, and you'll feel good about it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Now, what about, you've interviewed amazing CEOs. Any kind of one or two that you'd kind of pull out, in particular that you really respect, and why?
Well, I think, Frank Slootman has to be at the top of the list. I've known Frank since his data domain days. I've read his book multiple times. I interviewed him last June at the Snowflake Summit. His book is called Amp It Up. If you haven't read it, it's actually really amazing and inspiring. No BS, cuts right to the chase, super clear thinker, and an operator for sure. And I think, a couple others, Andy Jassy, amazing CEO. And one of my, early CEO heroes was Scott McNeely, a guy who had big cojones and wasn't afraid to take on the big boys.
Yeah, I was kind of a late entrant to Sun Microsystems by way of trying to figure out a storage tech acquisition. So I ran versus vertical, and I'd bring Wall Street, and he was just awesome on sales calls. I mean, so, which I think most of the top CEOs are. If you think about Mark Hurd, rest in peace, Dick Ian, and others, just so customer centric, just so responsive, kind of want to get it done, go back to corporate, try and break glass, as best they can. Crazy. Anyway, and what about maybe some sales leaders similarly?
I mean, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I'm in awe of you, Randy. I mean, I'll tell you, most of the great sales leaders that I met early on in my career were from EMC. You, Chris Riley, Peter Bell, even my friend Tom LaHive, who.
I was going to say Tom before when you mentioned CyberArk. I completely forgot. Yeah, you got to give Tom.
Right? I mean, come on. Even a guy like Tom is inspiring. Young kid, worked his way up, was an analyst at IDC and DataQuest, and became a top-notch salesperson because he worked really hard at it. He took it really seriously and always going after self-improvement. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And you got to mention Billy Scannell.
And Billy, of course, to this day, just. Amazing, sales leader.
Survive. I tell him he should write a book, How to Survive and Thrive, right? Just so many different cultures, so many environments, headwinds, side winds, crazy.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, look at that company. I mean, wow, talk about a transformation. Unreal.
Amazing. So maybe, touching on that, any point of views on Dell?
Yeah, it's a new era for them. Of course, I don't blame Michael Dell. He had 40 billion reasons for selling VMware. That's in 7 years. He and Silver Lake put $4 billion of their own money into the deal to buy EMC. They did it with leverage. They paid down the debt with VMware cash flow and financial gains. But so now they're left as a hardware company with low margins, but a leader. They do everything, great supply chain. I was always a fan of a spin in. I mean, I think Dell could have been the Oracle of infrastructure, but again, they had so many financial reasons to spin it off. And I think it's much better for VMware that it's spun off as an independent. We'll see what happens with Broadcom. But so Dell now has an opportunity to continue to grow. I think they can start doing M&A. They got a much better balance sheet. I think they really have to do more in software because they just gave up their number one software asset. PCs were the gift that kept on giving during the pandemic, and that's now reverting back to the norm. So they got to really keep crushing it in storage and do better, I think, in software areas, particularly around data management.
Yeah, totally. And so kind of reflecting back over the years, any mentors that you've had and kind of specific advice you'd gotten from them?
I would say my number one mentor, outside of my parents, was a guy named Patrick J. McGovern. He was the chairman of IDG. He's the godfather. And so he never took a dime of outside capital. And his mentorship was always stay close to the customer. Obviously, he had an unbelievable work ethic. Go and see those customers, be face to face, belly to belly, and have respect for people. He was an unbelievable gentleman. Sometimes I violate that advice, get a little heated. My Italian background, maybe, but just an unbelievable inspiration of somebody who built a multi-billion-dollar business with a blank sheet of paper.
Oh, that's great. And what about any advice that you would give your younger self?
Again, it's kind of bromide, but the whole fail faster. When I started my first company, I was so passionate about having it be a success. I didn't want to see it fail, but I knew it was going to fail, and so that was sort of one thing. The old fail faster. I also think the other big mistake I made in my career is when I left IDC, I didn't have a non-compete. And I had a massive network. That's how I knew you and a lot of other people. And I could have monetized that and built a business that would have been a precursor to what we have now. And I honestly went through some lean years and had to pick myself up and, get that positive attitude going and figure it out. And I mentioned the story of starting again, publishing, and of course it's worked out great. But in retrospect, I would have gone into what I'd known and leveraged that network better. I didn't understand the power of network.
Yeah, great, crazy. And we had, as Ken Doherty and Riley and others will say, we had Walter Brown as a early on consultant. Mike Ruckers calls him the father, the godfather of enterprise sales. But he'd say, know me, like me, trust me, right? You had to be in there proving yourself. It's not like just, hey, you're buddy. But to your point, earlier on where you're talking about, okay, you leave, you no longer have that, IDC or IBM or HP or Dell, kind of business card, why people are going to see you. They're going to see you first off based on you or what their perception was of you before. Did you come through for them? Were you helpful? That gets you in the door, and then you got the solution to kind of keep going, right?
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you got to earn that trust, and it doesn't just happen overnight.
Awesome. Well, you've been fantastic guest. Closing question I always like to ask anybody, if it's not incriminating, if there's any PC or PG Randy story that you want to share.
I would just say this about Randy Seidel. I think in sales, first of all, you can't have enough friends. I think the first time I saw you work a room, I think you were at Permabit as a CEO. I was speaking at a storage tech conference, And I was just in awe of the way you walked around the room. You knew by the end of the night, you had talked to and pressed the flesh with every single person in that room. And I learned from watching you, and you're always there. You are a friend. And I say you can't have enough friends in sales. I remember this past summer, my wife and I, of course, got a place down in Chatham. I know you follow both of your sons around, and I reached out to you, and sure enough, hey, I'm going to be at the game. Let's meet. You were there. We had a great chat. Took some pictures. So you're always present and always there in the moment when needed, and even when not needed. So I really appreciate that friendship, Randy.
Thank you very much, and likewise for sure. And it was a great to have you show up there as well. So anyway, awesome, really appreciate it. It's an honor. You're kind of the, I don't know what you call it, TV host, video host, broadcaster, kind of guru extraordinaire that I definitely look up to, on top of everything else, not to repeat myself. But anyway, you've been great. So next week, we're going to have David Knorr, who started out being my co-host with this, and he's got a new book out, which is Relationship Economics. It has a 3 on it, so I'm not sure if it's a part 3 or cubed or whatever, but David's always very, very insightful. So talking about a lot of the topics there with relationship economics, and then I'm sure we'll touch on some things relative to sales kickoffs that people are in the midst of as well. So for those that are members of Sales Community, thank you so much. If you're not, you can go to salescommunity.com/winterfree. You can get a free membership there. And for Decision Link, awesome value selling company, definitely go check them out. And Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. And this will get posted everywhere for those that want to check it out or share it. So Dave, thanks a lot. Take care.